Winter's Reign, Book 1, Cold Dawn. Chapter 1, Regent. The inescapable shadow stepped forwards, a powerful silhouette answering the statement that was just announced.
Hereby decree Prince Winston Vanille Arai of Astra Kingdom as Prince Regent from this moment on.
The Winter Prince, despite his father's ailing health, showed no signs of worry. As always, stern and cold, bored. Summer, go stand beside your brother. Their mother tapped the girl's shoulder, motioning her to go on the balcony. Princess Samantharia, with shoulders hunched, stepped forwards. The two siblings both had raven black hair and vibrant blue eyes, but that was it for their similarities. His hair was a mass of curls that needed copious amounts of hair creams to tame it, whereas she had long straight hair like their mother, albeit tied up in a bun. His eyes were framed by a pair of thin, gold-rimmed spectacles, sharp-edged, making his eyes seem even sterner and older than his 21 years, and she was just a lost 16-year-old, simple and out of place. "Samantharia," hissed the prince, not even turning his head from the gathered crowd spread out below them on the palace garden grounds. "You're slouching again. Do not humiliate me." He was the perfect royal heir. Summer knew she was the furthest thing from that. She knew that. She straightened her spine, lifting her chin, and hoping the tears wouldn't show in her eyes. Regent Prince. Now her brother had more authority, more power, and more responsibility. The unreachable lord over all Astra. And she knew there was no room left for her. They stepped back into the corridor, people bustling this way and that. Winston had already turned to his aide, a young man taller than himself, with lengthy pale hair tied back in a ponytail, 2 loose locks on either side of his head. "Henry, I also need the financial records for the northern districts before Prime Minister Kessiel comes to discuss the matter. I shall have them on your desk by dinner." "By noon, Henry. I cannot waste time." Summer glanced back at her brother. She'd stood silently at his side, the other child of their father, but not a word had made it past her lips. "I should say something at least, but congratulations sounds wrong, considering the circumstances. Then maybe—" "Brother, I wish you all the best in this new role," she called out, and stared. Winston kept walking away, still talking to Henry. "And make sure to schedule a meeting with—" Henry frowned back at Summer, placing his hand over Winston's shoulder to slow him down. The motion was so automatic that even Henry seemed startled, and quickly took his hand back with a muttered apology. "What?" Your sister, my lord." Winston sighed, looking back at his younger sister. "Do you not have studies to attend now?" I just wanted to say," she started to mumble, nervously lowering her head to stare at the floor. "How many times have I told you, look up when you speak? You're a princess, not a peasant." Henry winced, a hand raised as if to interject a word, but without stature to say anything, he could only watch, troubled and silent. Winston turned to leave, but the tears were already in Summer's eyes. "Princess," Henry stepped forwards towards her. "It does not matter," she yelped out, running back down the corridor. The air was stale, and Henry didn't move. "Come along, Henry," Winston murmured. "We have a lot of work to do." "My lord, are you sure? She merely wanted to wish you all the best." "She should worry less about me and more about herself. The tutors claim she misses sessions and does not apply herself to her studies. At this rate, she will be a useless child, merely a political decoration to be used." "Yes, but—" "Or is it, Henry, that you disagree with me and my decisions? Are you somehow better than me?" Henry sighed, staring at the prince. The two young men could not be more opposite. Henry was tall, athletic, and strong, well-liked throughout the palace, by staff and nobles alike. Some people would perhaps even dare consider Henry being a better person compared to Winston. But the prince was the prince, and Henry was just a viscount, a retainer, an aide, an errand runner. He stayed silent as facts spoke aloud for him. "As I thought," muttered Winston, marching on to his office while Henry could only grimace. And so the Winter Prince's rule had begun. The city beyond her window was said to be a sprawling metropolis, grand and vibrant, a shining jewel in all the land. But during the day, the princess could only see the roofs and bricks and a smoggy mist. In the evening, however, the carriage lights would twinkle along the lanes and roads, the street lamps sparkling in the dark. The mundane would become beautiful, ethereal, the city a blanket of shimmering stars. That was when Summer could see the jewel, twinkling and reflecting lights in all directions. She gazed out at the nightscape, smiling weakly to herself. This was the most beautiful view to behold, and her favourite time of day. "Come, child, get dressed for the reception dinner. The Prince of Farino has asked to speak to you, so dress nicely, and please—" "Farino?" She turned. "I do not wish to go, Mamma." "Well!" Her mother sat beside her on the window seat. "Your brother is also not really pleased with Farino or their royals, but they have asked politely to greet you, so it is the least we— Will father get better?" The question cut the air and shut the conversation down instantly. Her mother glanced at her, eyes burning with tears. Queen Ruisa closed her eyes against the swelling pain, and Summer turned back to her precious window. "I hate this. Summer, please." Her mother wrapped her arms around her. My darling dear daughter, please do not make things harder. Just get dressed, greet the Prince of Farino, and smile. I beg you, do not show any weakness, and do not cause a scene. My dear child, my heart could not bear it." Prince Gratin of Farino was a 20-year-old man with pockmarked cheeks, fuzzy eyebrows, and a pompous way of holding himself as if he was a gift to all humanity. And as he spoke, Summer stayed silent, not from respect, but from being shocked speechless. "Such a beautiful bride when you don't speak," he announced. "Such a gorgeous flower! I shall tend to you for eternity. Ah, to spoil such a beautiful flowering bride!" A shadow fell over Summer, and Grattan froze in his strange statements. "Oh, Prince Winston, I was just—" "Grattan, I do not ever recall giving myself to be your brother-in-law. Ever." Winston's face went as dark as his voice, and Summer stepped back, pausing to glance aside just as Henry rushed up to her. "Come on, Princess Samantharia's personality likely gives her few willing suitors, but I'll accept the challenge of a useless but beautiful child as a bride. If Farino wishes to continue in peace with the kingdom of Astra, you would find it more useful to be grovelling at my feet than pining after a child. Pursue her, and I will annul the Elias Treaty with valid reason." Grattan took a sharp breath in, trying to stand taller than Winston. They were both barely average height, neither taller than the other, and mostly dwarfed by those around them. Summer and Henry stared at the two rival princes, then glanced at each other. Henry stuck his tongue out quickly as he rolled his eyes, and Summer giggled at his action. "Anything you two wish to add?" Winston snapped at the pair. "He didn't ignore me." The princess wished to yelp out the thought, while Henry seemed to grimace at the fact that Winston had heard them laughing at the pair of royals. Winston's glare continued, his tone harsh. "Princess Samantharia, I ordered you not to—" "I need some fresh air," Summer whimpered, as Henry's momentary spell of amusement broke, and she rushed away into the crowd, the rich ocean-blue dress twirling in her wake. Henry's eyes rested after her, watching the blue eventually be swallowed up by other dresses and suits. "My lord, are you sure that treating her like this is really in her best interest?" "War." Henry glanced back at Winston. Grattan had also disappeared into the crowd, away from the angered regent, but Winston must have stopped a passing member of the palace staff, as he had a plate of cake in one hand, a fork in the other, and his cheeks were full. "When did you even—" "I asked Mr. Regier to bring the rest of the cake to my office. I might let you have some." "Wait, office?" Grattan reminded me. I need to check something," he said as he grabbed Henry's coat and walked off, not even noticing that the rough motion had ripped one of Henry's buttons off. The crowd of people were nobles from their own land and the neighbouring nations, as well as important or prominent people of the land. But it didn't matter. To Summer, it was a crowd that made no sense to her, and she was just the lost child wandering in between them. When she was much younger, they would all ooh and ah over her dress, call her adorable or sweet, and praise her for the most basic display of humble politeness on her part. But now, either leeches like Farino's prince would leer at her, Old men would keep an ugly eye upon her, or they would simply ignore her. Ignoring wasn't too bad, though. She stayed close to the wall, on the far side of the large ballroom, as if it was safer. She couldn't make a scene if nobody noticed her presence, right?
Brother probably told Henry off. I should apologize to him properly. I keep getting him into trouble like that.
The guilt was overwhelming, and her brother, how scary would he be when angered? She never usually stuck around to find out. She went up the stairs to the mezzanine and looked back at the ballroom. Where was her brother anyway? There was no sign of him, nor of Henry. Princess, one of the palace staff paused at her side.
Ah, Mr. Reggio, have you seen my brother? He went to his office, Princess.
The elderly man bowed.
Ah, thank you very much, she smiled, politely.
The basics she could do. The palace had several wings, guest rooms, libraries, and offices, but as most people were attending the reception dinner, the corridors were mostly dark and empty. It was a little unnerving seeing the palace that way, but Summer walked along without seemingly any aim or destination, pausing only when she spotted the light glowing from an open doorway. That was Winston's office, but it was Henry's voice she heard first. Oh, I see. The Treaty of Alers has that restriction for the northern districts too.
Yes, but I do not like that. I have my own plans for the region.
You wish to compose a new treaty with Ferno, so that the region is free from them?
Grattan and his lot. Likely they will demand something grand in return. Wonder if the current treaty already has an amendment I could use?
Brother's so busy with work, perfect prince. This is ridiculous. I am nothing like him. She sighed, peering around the doorway, and paused in surprise. Somehow, she expected to see her brother seated behind his grand desk of rich redwood, Henry nearby with a folder, maybe looking for something on the shelf. She wasn't wrong about Henry, other than he was kneeling, searching one of the lower shelves. But her regal brother in all his pompous glory was sitting on the floor, his dinner vest from earlier in the evening chucked on his desk. His shirt blouse had all the buttons undone, and his hair wasn't slicked back anymore, looking more like a furious ocean of turbulent black curls as he scratched his head.
Henry, read through this and find the law books referenced in it.
He handed Henry a page from the pile of papers he was holding on to. Oh, I thought you wanted me to check
this one first. Alers didn't change an older treaty. If we find that one, there might be something I can use.
Henry nodded, turning back to the shelf and flinching as the prince sneezed, and sat there, sniffling as he read the next page. Henry watched him a moment longer before sighing. Why are you half undressed anyway? You will get cold.
Oh, my clothes feel a little tight recently.
Then have new ones made to fit?
They both look so regal and serious, even like this.
Summer tugged at a lock of her own hair as she kept herself hidden back, only peeking around the doorframe.
Nobody takes me seriously. How can they?
What? Waste my citizens' money for new clothes? Do not be ridiculous, snapped Winston. Fine, fine. Another sniffle. But I will get you a blanket, my lord.
Thank you, Henry.
I didn't even think of it that way. Summer's eyes dropped to her dress. It had been a special order, handmade by the royal dressmaker, just for this occasion. She never even thought twice about it, about clothing, about the cost. She never had to.
I'm a terrible person, she grimaced, and a worse princess.
In silence, she trudged away from the door. It was a shame, too. 3 seconds more, and Henry dropped a folded blanket straight on top of Winston's head. Have you considered eating less cake?
Oi, Henry!
Well, is that not the reason for your clothes not fitting?
Sugar is good for my brain. Cake is good for thinking.
You could save your citizens even more money if you cut back on the sweets.
Henry, you put that plate down or I'll...
You will what, fit your clothes? Queen Ruissa heard the bickering, but her concern had been about the person she had seen fleeing from the office doorway. Boys, I just saw Summer run from here in tears. What did you two do, and why are you not at the... She trailed off, staring at the sight. Henry was still picking up the papers from the floor and checking he had them all in order. His hair was dishevelled. It is for his own health, Henry announced. Also, it is payback. He snapped my button.
Henry!
Winston whined, trying to step forwards, and Ruissa choked on a laugh. The flustered prince was bundled up, a blanket tied around him, pinning his arms to his sides. "Please do not drag out my name like that, my lord," Henry mumbled, scratching his cheek as he looked for a missing page, only to find it still in Winston's hand. He plucked it out and put it back in the collection, nodding to himself. "Sometimes I worry about you two having to pretend to be adults, but I am relieved to see you have time to play around so freely." Louisa smiled at the pair. "I'm not playing around," grumped Winston. Henry looked up. "Wait, Your Majesty said the princess was crying." She nodded, and Henry ran past her, out the door with a worried look on his face. He muttered something about checking on Summer as he fled. "Ah, that boy is so easy to read." Louisa paused, looking back at Winston, still trying to wriggle out of the blanket. There was a bow tied on the back, surprisingly well. Louisa smiled. If only the young never had to grow up. "Yeah, princess, I found you. Shall we have a private dance, Gretchen took her hand, holding on tightly despite her trying to turn to leave. "Please, let me go. But princess, you had a wonderful idea to come out somewhere more private, and heavens bless you, I will gladly take your invitation." "I did not invite," she yelped out, her mind suddenly wondering why Gretchen was even here, so far from the ballroom. "He followed me the entire time?" Gretchen moved his face close to hers, and Summer panicked. As far as she knew, she was on her own. She didn't hear or see Henry come around the corner, already about to intervene. It was too late anyway. She slapped Gretchen across the face as hard as she could, and the coldest chill swept over her. "You had better rethink your life, Samantharia, or you will only be good as a chess piece to be married off for a slight political advantage to some sleaze. Apologize to Prince Grattan immediately." "No," she yelped out, her face red, but Winston's voice was cold. "Listen here." Enough. She couldn't take it. Not anymore. "Shut up! You are the only one who never listens. I hate you!" she shouted back at him, just as Winston raised his hand. The slap echoed in the hallway, stunning the audience of the siblings' argument. Henry already had a handkerchief in hand, reaching out to Summer, but Winston grabbed his wrist to stop him. "Henry, stop coddling her. I've had enough of this farce. Samantharia, you come with me right this instant. We need to talk." "Wait, I'll go with you, my lord." Henry moved to follow, but Winston shot him a cold glare. "No, you will not. You are part of the problem, so stay at the reception dinner until I return." "But at least for security?" At that, Winston sighed, adjusting the strange metal device over his right ear. Fine, I have this. If it's a security concern, I can call for help, right? Warn me if need be, but do not dare follow." Henry sighed, absently tapping a matching device over his own right ear. New technology, apparently, using old discoveries in new ways. Metal that reacted to sound. "It is not supposed to replace me, though," Henry thought to himself, watching the siblings leave. The Winter Prince and Princess Summer. They are like the moon and the sun. "Both of them are crazy," Grattan muttered, rubbing his cheek. Henry frowned, glancing back at the other prince. "As I recall, you were standing very close to her. Close enough that she could slap you." "So?" Grattan echoed. "Did not Prince Winston warn that if you continued leering after her, he would annul the Allaire's treaty?" Grattan stared at him, silent, and kept staring. The two were of similar age, although Henry could not really say he had a grain of respect for the foreign prince. After all, unlike Winston, Henry had seen this disgusting creature attempt to kiss the princess. Grattan had been holding her hand against her will. If Winston found out, it could start a war. Henry kept staring, and Grattan silently turned and walked away, whistling a nervous tune to himself. As much as it was a good thing that Winston hadn't seen that, Henry couldn't help but feel his own revulsion at Grattan grow even more. And besides, if she had not slapped him, I just might have beaten him into the ground. "We have been walking for a while in the dark. Whatever for?" Summer walked along, a step behind her brother as the face of his pocket watch lit the way. It was still too dark to see clearly, the glowing watch only giving enough sight to one who already knew the way. "Where are we going?" Summer asked.
This is a disused servant's passage, so nobody will even stumble upon this conversation. Samantharia, Winston sighed. You are my sister, but I cannot continue to ignore your behavior. You show contempt for your status and mine. This is the life you have been born into, and it is about time you learned to respect that. Understand? Summer felt her chest seize up.
What? What? A lecture?
She shook her head.
Even so, despite everything?
Summer, how? She yelled out, unloading the pent-up rage that had only peeked out earlier in the corridor. Everyone is always bossing me around. Read this, look at that, curtsy nicely, speak politely, do not eat too fast, do not think too slow. Somebody disgusting is scaring me, trying to touch me, and I cannot do anything? I'm not good enough, I know that. It is all pointless. Pointless? Winston glanced back at his sister in confusion. Yes, pointless, because I am not a perfect child of the king like you. He stared at her. His voice lost its ice, but the bluntness came down like an old axe. Then who of the condemned plagues are you? Huh? She whimpered, wiping her face with her hands. Tears. My sister is the princess, Winston explained, looking aside. She may one day need to take the throne from me, or join the throne of another nation. I may need her help, but I do not need you. Not like this. Summer frowned. Was this how Winston really felt? You are right in saying you are useless. If it has already come to this, then I shall make you useful, by force, if need be. The light had moved, and Summer felt the back of her dress rip.
What? What is happening? Why would he?
Something touched her shoulder. Here, put this on instead. She took the cloth while still holding her now torn dress up over her underclothes.
What?
Brother, I still do not understand,
she mumbled, but obediently pulled the new dress over herself. It was rougher material, thicker and warmer, and more light spilt into the passage. Huh? Where? Just as Winston pushed her, a door slammed. She was outside, the door behind her, the dark passage closed off, and before her, the most putrid smell of a rotten sewer. Ah! She turned around, pounding her fists against the door. Brother, let me in! Winston listened to the pounding on the door as he leaned against it, grinning. I am not letting you back in. This passage leads out here to enter city. The only exit you have here is a long walk to the central sewers and water runoff canals. You could walk back to the palace from there by the city streets, but... He laughed. I will have told the guards by then about an outrageous lunatic impersonating my precious little sister, and they will ignore you, or have you sent to an asylum. He paused. And Henry is under my command. There is nobody left to help you. The pounding stopped with a final whoomp on the wooden door, and he sighed, his eyes dropping to the floor a moment before he stepped away. Goodbye, Summer. You are all alone. Henry sighed with relief when he saw Winston return, but Summer wasn't with him. He quickly went over to the prince, looking around. Where is your sister, my lord? I spoke to her, and she has already retired for the evening. Speaking of which, I shall as well. Good night. Henry stepped in front of Winston, quickly apologizing for the otherwise rude action.
We are still in public.
Shall you need help with any more work this evening? Huh? I said sleep, not work. You need your hearing checked. Henry blinked, stunned as the prince marched off into the crowd.
What was that?
You seem troubled, Master Ebonry. Ah! Henry glanced back at the servant holding a tray with 2 champagne flutes on it. Mr. Reggio, I need a favour. Could you please have someone go check on the princess for me? I am on shift right now, though. If anyone complains, tell them to see me. Oh, very well. Mr. Reggio smiled weakly as Henry took the tray off him.
I feel uneasy,
Henry thought, staring at the tray.
Winston never says what he is planning.
He sighed. I need a drink, he told the tray, picking up one glass and finishing it off. Ah, rotten plagues. He drank the other one too.
Summer ends with